Hey everybody, welcome to Guitar Hunter. When you're looking for guitar tools, the tools to do setups and to work on your guitars, should you spend the extra money and get something from Stu Mac, or should you go cheap and buy the guitars that you hate at Harbor Freight? Now, I kind of love Harbor Freight. I've bought a lot of things here, but let's pick out some tools and let's just compare them against the tools from Stu Mac, and I will tell you, I will be straight up honest, which are worth buying from Harbor Freight and which are worth getting from Stu Mac. If you are someone who tweaks and modifies your own guitars, there is a question that is as old as time. Should you buy once and cry once? Or should you save the dough and buy low? So this is a video that is sponsored by Stu Mac, and I'm going to compare 7 items that come from Stu Mac, and I'm going to hold them against 7 items, almost, that come from Harbor Freight. So, I'm Jeremy, this is Guitar Hunter. Thanks to Stu Mac for sponsoring this video. I have used Stu Mac for 20 years buying and selling guitars. I love tweaking and modifying my guitars with things from them, but I'm also a cheapskate, so I don't buy all of these things, but let's get into it. Number 1, if you need to work on guitars, you're just going to need a good workbench. This thing is expensive, and that's usually the complaint that people have with them, but look at this. It is a beautiful work mat. Now, what I really like about the work mat from Stu Mac is that if you drop solder or if you like cut strings, if you have like metal shavings, none of them seem to stick very well to this material. Now, I have heard that if you get a workout mat, like a yoga mat, that you could actually do this yourself. So, the first thing up from Harbor Freight. So this is the mat that would go on the floor underneath your feet. This is the closest thing I could find to this mat when I went into Harbor Freight. So I'm gonna cut this down and see if I can just make a mat that is the same size. Oh, it's very rolled up. I don't think this thing is going to want to be flat anytime soon. And now we measure and cut. Yeah, okay. I trust that. Now, one thing I can promise you, this is just like foam rubber, and I'm sure that the moment this gets solder on it, or this would probably stick some piece of guitar strings or metal shavings. I wouldn't trust this for long, but it's a 6-foot long roll, and I only used like 30 inches, so you could do this a couple times and have a couple mats. So you definitely can save some dough on here, but this has been a dead-on reliable thing for me because it is resilient, and it lays totally flat. I would put your money where it needs to be to protect your guitar when it's on your workbench. Now, the second challenge, and one of the most helpful things that Stu Mac sells, is the neck rest. Now, this thing is quite remarkable. When you first look at it, it's very simple, but I think that's kind of the brilliance of the design. So it's really helpful if you need to angle the guitar up for whatever reason, if you need the neck up higher, or if you're restringing, sometimes it's easier to have it up high as you're standing at the other end, or if you need it to lay down pretty flat, this is a pretty helpful mat. I like this. Now, there is no real direct comparison to this, so it's a pretty easy, just spend the money. For me, this thing makes sense. Okay, you have a foundation to work on your guitars. What's the next thing you would need to do? Next thing you need to do is you would have little screwdrivers, little just bits and bobs on the guitars that you would need to adjust, that you would need to tweak. So check this thing out. This is the little toolkit, the little screwdriver kit from Stu Mac. I'm still pretty new to this, because I've always been cheap. I've always had just a couple old screwdrivers that I really like and trust, and I use those. What really got me on this is that this can very easily fit in pretty much any gig bag, any backpack, in my camera bag. This is the closest thing I can find, and it sounds quite cheapy. So let's dig into this thing. This does have a couple things that the Stu Mac does not. Most notably, it has an extender for the screwdriver, 2 extenders now that I look at it. So the screwdriver itself is fairly similar. If we get a similar sized bit, this thing it's much lighter. Doesn't feel as good in your hands for the Pittsburgh compared to this. The plastic is solid and it feels more substantial. Feels like you could kind of, if you shouldn't, but let's be honest, if you do need to do any kind of cranking, torquing, screwdrivers are not pry bars. But when you do this one, will probably do better. Okay, this one has an extender that would get you out, what, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, something like that. When you come over here, there's a magnifying glass. Ain't that cute? Okay, here's why this is hollow. So you can do the extender, and then it's a friction fit. So however long you need it to be, if you tighten down this collar on the top, then you have a longer screwdriver, but it's hollow. This is clearly a thing that you would need to replace several times over in the life of owning it. Don't love it. I don't love that bit. Okay, so it comes with 2 of the F20 screwdriver, the Phillips bits, and one just stays in there. Also has the extender. You would rarely ever need to extend a screw in a guitar application, which is why it's not in the guitar toolkit from StewMac, but in here, you would have something if you're working on a car, if you're working at your house. Less gimmick than I feared. Okay, if I had to think through this toolkit, I am cheap, I am frugal, but I have been through cheap tools a lot. And so I'm just now getting to a place where I think that this is a pretty clear winner. Toolkit goes to StewMac. Buy once, cry once. If you're doing any kind of electrical work, the next thing you're gonna have is you're gonna have to have a wire stripper. Now you need to have a good one. Don't use your snips to strip wires. Jeremy, listen to yourself here. I almost ruined a set of Mythos humbuckers because I used one of these like an idiot instead of using the right tool. So with this, now this is kind of Harbor Freight's bread and butter. The electrical tools, it seems like that's where a lot of the priority stuff is. They're going after tradesmen who are just working blue collar guys. Let's look at this. Okay, they feel different when I open them up. Not bad. That's a smooth, like there's some good action to it. That spring gives you some clarity, but I can feel it. I can feel it not quite sliding easily. Okay, that's it. That's where the dollars matter on this. So most of the guitar stuff that you're going to do is going to have smaller gauge wires. You kind of start at what, a 22 would probably be the smallest thing that you would see. You would need some tiny little guys. This starts at a 10, this starts at a 20. And so it's just a finer tool. This is a more specific tool for the application that you're in. This is not necessarily a bad tool, it's just the wrong tool. So StewMac wins again. Buy once, cry once, buy a tool that is made for the application that you're using. Let me grab some wire. I do want to try these out side by side. This is like a speaker wire that came out of a cabinet. Oh, that was easy. So this is 20 gauge wire. Man, that was easy. Let me come over here, get the 20. 20's way up here on this one. Okay. It's interesting. They just start at different places. Like one starts at a 10 gauge, one starts at a 20. So this one, you have to use the tool way more leveraged out, which may be helpful, but if the biggest wire that you're gonna experience is at the very end of the range of the tool, not great. But yeah, StewMac, buy once, cry once. Now, a hilariously separate comparison is a $7 Husky. Now, this is actually from Home Depot. I couldn't talk myself into the right tool. I couldn't spend like 80 or 100 bucks. And so it wasn't until I got with StewMac that I was able to like get a really good caliper here. So this is the actual excellent caliper, a digital caliper. Most people will not need these, but if you need precision, if you're doing things very, very specific, don't use your instincts. That's my big lesson, is that I get a little greedy, or sometimes I forget what belt's on a belt sander and I do an 80 grit and I just chomp down a saddle, and then it's too low on a Martin, and then I have to cut a new one, which is way worse. So comparing that to a cheapo digital, you probably could, but this one takes way too much brain for me. So with this, it does seem like money buys happiness when it comes to a caliper. This is my boxwood guitar from Steve Daines in San Diego, California. He's a dear friend, and I love this guitar. And one of the specs that is interesting to me on this guitar is that the nut width it's the old Martin nut width. It's like pre-reimagined, unimagined. Nope, Steve, I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. But you set this to inches, come over here. That says 1 3/4. What? Have I been wrong this whole time? Okay, this is 1 3/4 nut width, but I wouldn't have known that. I would have just had opinions without any basis in reality. Calipers, if you need one, buy the right one. There are digital calipers that are pretty awful. I own one that is plastic from Harbor Freight. It's actually at the shop, and I hate it, and we shouldn't even have it there. The problem with it is that the measure on the end is actually plastic, so the whole thing flexes and moves. So if I'm trying to measure things to like hundredths of an inch or thousandths of an inch, it cannot flex, it cannot bow. So if you need it, buy once, cry once. One of the things that you are going to do the most as a guitar enthusiast is you're going to change a lot of guitar strings in your life. For years, I used these, the $2 wonders, the Jim Dunlops, just the cheapest of cheap. I've broken so many of these, I've lost some of these, and that's why sometimes they're great. It's like days that you just eat a McDonald's double cheeseburger. But there are times where you're like, hey, food matters. I'm gonna eat a good cheeseburger. And you go to a great place that makes really wonderful smash burgers that are so lacy and thin and crunchy and delicious, and they're a double because burgers are only burgers if they're double patties. Okay, anyway, the experience matters. So there are 3 tiers that I want to talk about. Number 1, I want to talk about the Jim Dunlop. These are fine, stick them in your bag, prepare to lose them. It's fine, it's okay, whatever. But they get dry, they get crusty, they pull apart, they break. These things will let you down pretty often. Behind that, StewMac does have a pretty clever string winder that also has one that pops out into a nut driver. So you could put this into a drill bit, or into a chuck. You could change the strings that way. I always think that's helpful, especially if you're doing guitars you need to do quickly, go fast. But overall, the quality on this is pretty lackluster. It's okay, I wouldn't spend the money on this. I'd either hang with that or I would go to the best string winder I've ever experienced. My favorite thing. This is probably my favorite thing that StewMac sells right now. This is a Waverly string winder. It is so incredibly good. It's like a fidget toy. Like I find myself like, I'll just sit at my desk and I'll just play with this thing and it's basically silent. This is such a great string winder. You can just so easily just like wind down, wind back up. And it's just, the experience matters so much. Now these are pricey. Very few people would actually need these, but to me, this is a really fun thing. I have bought 3 of these. I've given 2 of them away to people. I think the experience is so good with these. So if you're someone who restringing your guitar becomes kind of this like small little ritual thing that you get to do, this is a winner. So buy once, cry once, but you can also save the dough and buy low. I know you, you know me, we are kind of similar, some of us, and I have used, oh my gosh, they're so miserable feeling. I've used the cheapest of snips for changing strings. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to be miserable. Guitar can be fun, should be fun. Changing strings, especially trying to snip through the E and A strings, forget it if you're doing a bass. There is no chance of cutting through them with these tiny little dinky snips. They are so soul-suckingly bad. But StewMac has these that come in the string changing kit. These are remarkably good. And to me, this is definitely, for the little snips, this is a thing you definitely should just buy once, buy right, buy good. Cry that one time that you're like, how much? But I'm a fan of these. So that's it. I did not expect StewMac to come out so far ahead. Now I understand this is a sponsored video, but these are my actual reactions. StewMac has great stuff, incredible selection, everything I need, all the screws and the bits and bobs and those little output jacks that I like so much. But the shipping has always been quite expensive. So that's where it has made sense to me to get a StewMac account. So I'll put a link for StewMac down below. That's kind of like their Amazon Prime. They've dropped all of their prices, which who's dropping their price in 2023? Who is really bending over backwards to make it better for their consumers and their customers? So that's a big thing for me. And the shipping price, you still have to buy a good bit of stuff and it's like 12 or 13 bucks. I'm gonna put all of my favorite things from StewMac down below. We're also building out a landing page that's just my favorite stuff from StewMac. And yeah, it means a lot to me that you watch these videos. Thanks for watching. I'm Jeremy, this is Guitar Hunter. Go fill the world with music and friendship. The whole world has been charged with potential, and it's up to you and me to help people become the best versions of themselves by making music, making friends, building a community of people. You can join this YouTube channel down below. There's a button that says join. There's also Patreon. If you like Patreon, you get similar experiences in the 2 different places, but that is how these videos get made in the live shows and all the guitars that I get to go chase down. So thanks for watching. I'm Jeremy. See you later.